These colors are so vibrant. Oh, I think this one's gonna look really good. This effect is definitely one of my favorites. Have you ever tried to create vibrant colors using stain only to end up with a mess? I'm gonna share with you the products and techniques I use to create these vibrant colors so you can create some stunning pieces of your own. Adding color to your wood projects is nothing new, but to achieve these vibrant, deep colors, the product you choose will make a huge difference. Today, I'll mix and apply Keda dye as well as showcase the techniques I use to get this dark night effect. Keda dye is an environmentally safe stain powder that's made in the USA. This kit comes in 5 different colors: red, yellow, black, brown, and blue. Blending these colors will create more variations. It's recommended to use a 1/4 teaspoon of powdered dye to a 6 to 8 ounces of either warm tap water or 70% alcohol. Rubbing alcohol will evaporate faster and reduce the raising of the wood grain. Adding more powder or liquid to the mixture will lessen the dye, but adding more powder may not darken the dye. To achieve a deeper color, more coats are recommended. After the dye is completely dissolved, check the color of the dye before applying. The color of the dye does not always represent the color it will be on the wood's surface. Mixing 2 dyes together will give you a wider range of colors like greens and purples. Keda dye is the preferred dye among many DIYers and professionals because of its quality. Unlike other products, these dyes are meant to be blended together. Because of this versatility, you can create some of the most stunning effects using endless techniques. Before applying the dye, you want to make sure that your surface is always prepped correctly. It's recommended to prep your surface with 150 grit sandpaper. A higher grit sandpaper will tighten the grain and won't allow for penetration of the dye. After prepping your surface, it's recommended to soak the top of your project with warm water to raise the wood grain and then re-sand after it's dried. This will ensure for the best penetration of the dye without raising the wood grain on the final product. To apply this product, I like to cut up a shop towel into about 2-inch sections. Because our kit doesn't come with a purple, we're going to mix our blue and our reds together and create our purple ourselves. I've found that creating purple is pretty easy, and you normally can just get away with a 50-50 of red and blue, but if you end up with a deeper red or a deeper blue, you can always balance out the purple by adding the opposite color. But before I add any color, I'm going to start with the heavy black. I'll start by adding the black to the edges and the sides of this project. My goal with this color combo is to make something that's a bit more subtle, something that has a lot of vibrance, but only when you really look at it. And I think by adding black to the edges of this project, it'll really help blend that purple and give you an illusion of almost a full black board unless you look right at it. After I've laid down a heavy black around my edges, I'll come back with a pure alcohol and slowly dilute this black and work any of the dye towards the center. By using pure alcohol, I can blend these lines together and really get rid of any of these sharp edges that don't look natural. It's important to remember when adding these layers and saturating this surface that it's going to always look different when it's wet or when it's dry. So as I begin to apply this pure alcohol, you can see that the tone of the wood changes, but as it dries out, you'll be able to see the true effect. Because this is our first coat, the dye absorbed really quickly. So before I let this thing dry out for a full 15 minutes, I came back in and added a little bit more black around the edges, being really aware of not oversaturating or getting this surface to be too dark. After diluting with pure alcohol again and working my lines towards the center, I like to come back with a dry rag and really buff out any of the final moisture that's left and soften those lines just a touch more. After my first coat of black, you can see I was able to blend away any of those harsh looking lines and have a nice smooth transition from a deep black edge to a little bit grayer towards the center. For our second coat, we're going to come in with the same black and repeat the same process. The difference between a professional looking product and a DIY product is the amount of time you spend saturating the surface. To achieve a vibrant design, it's going to take several coats and a lot of blending. Between each coat, I like to wait at least 15 minutes. Rubbing alcohol helps reduce the dry time as opposed to water, but between each coat, I still give 15 minutes, and for every 3 coats, I like to wait at least 2 hours. As our second coat began to dry, I decided I wanted to try something different. I decided I was going to try to add a little bit of blue to the center to see if we can get a different variation of purple or even a bit of blue that may show through in the final product. I'm not sure that adding blue to the center of this project really changed much in the end, but watch it throughout the project and let me know in the comments below when we're all done. Should I have just not added blue, or do you think it added a little bit of depth to the color? After our second coat dried out, I was really happy with the saturation of the surface so far. We had a pretty deep black edge and a nice transition into a gray that should blend really well with our purple. For our next coat, we're going to start to add a little bit more color. We're going to add our purple over our blacks and start to work it all towards the center. By placing this purple over the black, we should be able to saturate that surface really well once again and make sure that there's no dry spots or any other wood that's showing through. And as it transitions into a gray, it should replace with that deep dark purple. This will give a great illusion to the eye from a black to a purple with very little distinction. The biggest thing to worry about when working with a black dye is that it can dominate and ruin a project really quick. As I begin to apply the purple dye to the black areas, you can see that black dye starting to come back to the surface and start to dominate and dilute our purple. The biggest thing is to remember is to not bring that black dye towards the center. We'll switch out rags and replace our dye as we get closer to the center, making sure that if we do see any more black appearing, that we'll use a dry rag to remove it and then replace it again with a new rag and more purple dye. After this coat was dry, I couldn't be happier with the progress we had so far. We've got a beautiful transition between our blacks and our purples and a nice fade towards the center, but we needed to add just a little bit more purple to get the full vibrance out of this project. For our next coat, I decided to go with another heavy purple over the entire board. For this coat, I decided I was going to try to saturate this surface even heavier than any of the coats we've done before, and if we needed to tone back some of the purples in the center, we could always use a sponge and warm water to remove some of the dye. But for now, I wanted to try to saturate this surface completely with the purple dye and see what kind of effects we were going to get. After I fully saturated the surface with the purple dye, I realized that the last batch I mixed up might have had a bit too much red, and I was starting to see that come through in the surface of this project. To balance out that red, I decided I'd put a blue over top of the entire surface and hopefully get us that royal purple that we were really looking for. I'm really liking what I see. Nice deep purples, a little bit of blue, and those black edges should look really good after a clear coat. I've tried many different finishes with this dye and they all work. But for this project, I'm going to use a spray enamel. Using a spray finish will help avoid blending any of these lines together, and an enamel will dry quickly to a crystal clear finish. Before you go, let me know in the comments below, what color combo should I do next? And don't forget, the best way to support me is to like and subscribe. We just passed our first 1,000 subscribers.